Okay guys, well last week I sent a, I rang a lady and spoke to her, Sharon Egerton from the Ministry of Justice over on the North Shore, Legal Aid Services. Now she emailed me through an application form to apply for legal aid. However, there were some words on that form that I wanted some correct interpretations of, because as we all know, it's got nothing to do with what I believe those words mean. It's got to do with how they're authored and what the meaning is from the author's point of view. So I sent an email to her. She said that she would talk to whoever the grants manager was to get clarification from me. And then today I've just received an email back from her where it says, "I have now made inquiries regarding your questions from last week. Please note you can find the definitions in a dictionary. If you require further assistance, you can approach our duty lawyers at the district courts who are paid in assistance with their queries and questions. If this is unsatisfactory, you will need to contact our manager, Graeme Metcalfe, to set up an appointment." So, to me that's just a slap in the face. I explained to her that I have a law dictionary. If she's going to be as open, blunt and say, hey look, you know, go look it up in a dictionary, it's got nothing to do with what I believe those words are. I need them to explain it to me. I'm not of the legal society. I need them to translate it into English. So looks like I'm going to be giving Sharon a call back, because I've got a direct dial number here, 488-5440 extension 69340. I'll give her a call now and ask her for Graeme Metcalfe's contact details and set up an appointment from him. Now I'm doing this because I want to know what these words are. Most people wouldn't give a fuck, but say, why are you wasting your time? Because I feel like it, because I wish to. Alright? The rest of you guys don't give a fuck, I don't care. I do. I got kids that I'm going to need to know these correct answers to, and I'm not just going to be a stupid you and just follow the leader. I require answers. Anyway, let's give Sharon a call.
Legal Aid, Dan speaking. How can I help?
Yes, hello. Could I speak to a Sharon Egerton, please?
I will put you through.
Thank you.
Hello, Legal Aid Services, Sharon speaking.
Sharon, hello, how are you?
I'm very well, how are you?
Not too bad. I spoke last week or so to you in regards to some definitions of words. I sent an email to you asking for some definitions. You were going to contact the grants officer, and...
Oh yes, I didn't speak with you. You just emailed, didn't you?
Oh, I spoke to you first and then emailed after you you sent me the application form via the emails.
Alright, okay.
Yep. I see that you've written here just it can be found definitions in a dictionary. Well, as we all know, what type of dictionary? I have a New Zealand Butterworth...
I cannot answer your questions, that's the problem. The main thing for you to do, or probably the best thing for you to do, would be going to see the duty lawyer, as that's suggested in the email.
Yeah, the problem with that though is the last time I spoke to a duty lawyer, she got up and walked away. So if I'm sitting there asking for an interpreter...
Are you to Auckland? Are you Auckland District Court?
Yeah, I was at the North Shore District Court. The duty solicitor from courtroom number 2, her name was Jo. She got up and walked out after about 5 minutes of talking with me. Right. She wouldn't answer my question. She couldn't tell me what the correct interpretations of the words are. And as I didn't author any of these documents, I need to know what the author's interpretations are, correct?
Right, okay.
Doesn't matter what I think the words are. Oh, and also, are you there, Sharon?
Hi, I'm so sorry to keep you waiting now. I'm going to pop you through to the manager, okay? For him to have a word with you.
Is that Graeme?
It is.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Graeme Metcalfe.
G'day Graeme, how are you, mate?
Good, thanks.
Awesome. Has Sharon filled you in on what I'm after?
Yes. Well, she said, she has, that you had some issues with the form, is that right?
Well, it's just, I mean, I've got to obviously have a clear and complete understanding of the words and the interpretations on the words, and you know, the author's interpretation. What I think of the words on that document means nothing, because it's obviously the words, the power behind those words is from the author's perspective, correct? I mean, I didn't author the document, so I need to know what the author's interpretation of the words written on that document are, correct?
Well, it's a prescribed form, and I didn't author it either, and I'm not...
Yeah, well, I mean, anyone who's legally trained should be able to give me the correct legal interpretation to English for me, though.
Well, I think most, from what I understand, as I said, I'm not a lawyer, from what I understand, most literal meanings are taken from the dictionary.
Okay, so then my next question, Graeme, would be what dictionary? Because I have...
Well, what's your question first?
Well, my question is the complete interpretations of the words and the power behind them. For instance, the day I got pulled over, I was pulled over by a man dressed in a uniform acting as a constable, and yet apparently I'm being charged for an offence which I don't know what an offence is. I asked him at the time at that side of the road what an offence was, and he couldn't tell me. I asked him, is that a wrong? You know, I didn't commit any crime, I didn't cause any harm, loss or injury, so...
What was he saying you were doing?
His allegations are that I was, I'd broken a speed rule. Well, first he said I'd broken a law, then he changed it to breaking a rule. He couldn't tell me what the difference between lawful and legal was.
What does your charge document say?
Failing, exceeding a speed limit of 50k an hour, even though he pulled me over in a 100k area. He says that I failed to produce a driver's licence, and at no time did he give me a lawful order to do so.
So is that what the charge sheet says, or the information that you've got in front of you?
The two charges are, one's failing, well, exceeding a speed limit or doing 75k in a 50k area, and the other one is failing to produce a driver's licence when required by an enforcement officer.
So what you're saying is it wasn't a 75k, it wasn't a 50k speed limit, it was 100k, and that he never asked you for a driver's licence?
Well, he wandered, he asked several times, he requested. At no time did he require or order me to do that. I said to him, I gave him a conditional acceptance on the side of the road. I said to Neil, I said, mate, I'm happy to do anything you order me to do. I'm happy to produce or perform anything you order me to do. And his reply to me was, I'm not ordering you to do anything. So if he gave me no lawful order, how did I fail to produce something? Do you get what I'm saying? Now, I mean, I said to him bluntly, is that a request or an order? Okay, so, I mean, if he's getting paid for his time on the side of the road there.
Yeah, he's not a lawyer either.
Well, he's trying to enforce a legal statute. Yeah. Okay, so he should have an understanding of it. I'm just a man. I don't understand legalese. I'm not a member of the legal society. You know, I don't understand the customs or the terminology of any legal profession. I'm just a man. I speak English.
So normally you wouldn't qualify for legal aid.
Why?
Sorry?
Well, why wouldn't my person qualify for legal aid?
Because the penalty is not more than 6 months in jail.
So the penalty has to be a certain severeness or something before legal aid's...
Before it's mandatory.
Okay.
Just let me finish.
Sure.
So there's two criteria. One is financial and one is interest of justice. So interest of justice is deemed that it's got to be 6 months or more. Now the grants officers, and I'm not one of those, I just manage them,
okay,
have a discretion in certain cases, and there's no written direction, because can't. It's a discretion that they can grant aid in other circumstances.
Right.
So I'm not saying you're excluded, but on the face of it, it's unlikely.
Well, I mean, my person is a beneficiary.
Yeah, no, that's your financial situation, so that's a separate issue.
Well, it's my person's financial situation. But I mean, you see, I'm of the understanding that the word "you" is a plural, legally speaking. Is that correct?
No idea.
Okay, well, "you" is it's a word that creates a joinder between a man and the persona, or the person, or the name. Okay, now, what I did is I looked up the word "person" in the New Zealand Butterworth's Law Dictionary. Okay, so it's a legal dictionary telling me the legal definitions of what a person is. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the Interpretations Act 1999, section 30, but it states that a person is one of three things: a body corporate, unincorporated body, and corporation soul. I'm none of those three things.
Let's say that again.
A body corporate, unincorporated body, or corporation soul. It states a person includes, okay, now includes is an exclusionary term, correct?
A person or you include the word you?
Well, the word "you" depends on how you want to look at it. You can look at, say, the New Zealand Standard Banking Practices. It states that "you" is the customer. "You" is a plural in legal speak, apparently. The whole point was that at no time did that man at the side of the road, in his capacity as a constable, see a driver's license to create joinder between myself and any person.
Okay, so that's your argument, is that you think you've got a technical defence?
There's no technical defence at all. It was all captured on videotape after the...
Okay, so just going back to why you've rung me.
I've rung you because I want to know what... Because what Sharon did is she sent me an email of the application forms.
Yes.
And for me to fill out those forms, I need to know a complete, comprehensive understanding of the words written on that piece of paper, correct? I mean, you're not going to sign something if you don't know what the words mean, yeah?
Well, what words don't you understand?
Well, it's one thing. It's saying that I'm wavering things, that I waive. Now, it's also saying it's also using a capitalised I. Are you familiar with the terminology of capitis, diminuitio, maxima, minima, and media?
No.
Right.
All I'm trying to do is help you fill out a form.
Well, this is the words that are used on that form.
Then a grants officer will assess whether
See,
you qualify.
I think the difficulty here, Graeme, sorry, is that if you're not legally trained, you don't understand the words and the true legal meaning of those words. Like myself, I'm just an idiot. I'm an idiot legally.
If you ask me a question, I'll give you my opinion what it means.
Sure. Okay. Well, what is your interpretation of what a person is then? But what is the legal interpretation of the word person as it's written and prescribed on those forms?
Whereabouts?
Well, it states person on quite a few places on that form. I don't have it in front of me actually, but I can look.
I mean, I'm just looking at through the questions.
Okay. So for instance, the definition of the word person, because my understanding is in English, in the formal English language, is that the word person means any individual within any given society. Okay, that is a man or a woman within any given society is a person. Alright, now that's the English interpretation. However, the legal interpretation, as I stated before, is what's stated in the 1999 Interpretations Act, one of those three corporations. So what I'm saying is, at no time did I lower myself from that of a man to that of a person within a society for that officer to create a joinder.
Frank, again, we're talking about the legal aid application. I can't comment on the charges.
I know you can't, but I'm trying to help you comprehend as to what I'm saying is that I had never lowered myself to being that of a you, and in fact
and the legal aid form where it says are you male or female, you don't want to lower yourself to being you.
No. Well, see, the whole thing is to get justice, I've had to lower myself to be in the position or the capacity of the defendant, correct? Alright, so the fact that I'm already acting in that capacity, I've already lowered myself to that capacity. Now, for me to apply for this legal aid, it says, you know, for me to put my signature on the bottom, it says that I waive all of these wonderful things. There was quite a few words that I needed to know what the interpretations are, and by that I mean the legal interpretations. not look it up in a dictionary, there's your answer, because that is not the correct legal answer I require. And if you guys are going to use statutory instruments to have an enforcement...
I'm sorry, I can help you fill out the form.
Sure, okay,
I
so...
can get somebody to assess it, but I can't satisfy every word that you disagree with throughout the form.
I'm not disagreeing with anything. I'm asking for the legal interpretation of the words and their meanings that are written on that form.
What word?
It states... can you let me pull up the form here, and that way I'll see what I can do here. That would be Sharon there. Sorry, honestly, I'm not trying to be argumentative. Well, to me, argue means clarify. So, of course, I'm trying to clarify things, and I'll clarify till the cars come home. But I'm really, you know, to me, all jurisdiction...
Passport?
Sorry?
You have a passport?
Oh, I don't require a passport if I'm going to act through the...
No, it's just a general question.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I've never left New Zealand. Why would it...
The licence?
My person has a driver's licence. Should I require it?
Yeah, so you filled out some forms to get that licence.
I was under the understanding that I required it to travel in New Zealand. But I don't. Can you state categorically that I require a licence to travel?
No, but I'm saying you filled out a form to serve what you thought was a valid purpose.
And it was under my understanding at the time that I required a driver's licence to go from point A to point B in New Zealand.
Yes. So to serve a purpose, you filled out the form.
Sure.
So what's the difference between you're wanting to apply for legal aid? What's the difference between filling out the...
Oh, the difference is for the last 4 years I've spent studying all sorts of different societal structures and have a more comprehensive understanding of the words and what they mean and in what capacity. So when I'm going to be asked to fill out something in the capacity as a person or a citizen within the society of New Zealand, that I'm going to need to know what those words mean and how I'm going to be held liable through that person.
Okay, what I suggest you do is you document what your concerns are, what parts of the form that you would like clarification for.
That's why I sent the email asking for simple...
No, you've just asked.
For the meanings of the words, the legal interpretations of the words.
You've gone into a lot more detail on this phone than was in...
Oh, of course I have, because I'm trying to help you understand where I'm coming from.
Well, if you don't want to fill out the form at the moment, and that's your right, you need to document everything that you've got considered. I don't want to be coming back... I'll be referring this on, but I don't want to be going back and forwards when we satisfy some questions, you then say... And you also need to point out in what context each...
Sure, I can give you an exhibit if you'd like that. I can say, the word person, would you like me to put it in a question form? Do you mean the word person to be this interpretation? And I'll give you a quotation out of, say,
where it is.
Out of New Zealand's page 223.
No, so you need to point out in the legal aid form
Sure.
where it is.
Okay.
And what... And then say, what is the legal meaning of this word for the purposes of this application? Because I can't answer the question. All I can do is try and help you fill out a form to entitle you to request legal aid. But without the form, we can't give you legal aid, which is what we want to do, which is our job.
Yeah, I understand all of the... it's just to get payment.
Presuming you did get legal aid and you got a lawyer, a signed lawyer, would you let them run the legal aid case?
Well, how do you mean? Would I waive all privileges that I have?
Well, would you be running the case for him?
Well,
Even if you disagreed with anything he did, would you refuse to let him act for you?
Well, see, that's an interesting question, because it would completely depend on the man that I'm talking to, or who's being the lawyer.
What if he recommended you pleaded guilty?
Well, I'm not guilty.
Yeah, but what if he recommended you did?
Well, why would I plead guilty to something that I'm not guilty of?
What if he said, in terms of the...
I would need him to clarify his justification for doing so.
Yep, 35 kilometres in a 50 kilometre, hey?
Sure. That I failed to produce a driver's licence, for instance.
We'll just talk about the first one.
Sure.
If he said the evidence the evidence produced by the police, the police prosecution, states that you were, so you should plead guilty.
Okay. So and I would say, is that evidence signed sworn?
If he says they produced
A statement of fact?
Summary of facts, yeah.
Sure. Oh, well, that's what I... See, in this particular case, I have requested any and all documentation, so they have supplied the statement of fact and all the bells and whistles.
And what if he said you should be pleading guilty?
Well, after being supplied the statement of facts, I can see at least 10 points in that statements that are blatant lies, so why would I plead guilty to someone else's lie?
He's got a legal training, and he says you're going to lose this case and end up with a worse sentence. Regardless, if he says you...
Well, how would I don't quite understand why I would end up with a worse sentence.
Well, if you plead guilty early, you
Yeah.
get a better sentence. That's in the Criminal Procedures Act. The earlier you plead, the more chance you have of getting a better sentence. And that's the judge's rule on that.
Okay. So the man at the man up behind the bar there, is he actually a judge, or is he a justice of the peace?
I don't know where you'll end up. I don't know how.
Well, it's a traffic court. I've asked many a person whether it's a criminal or civil procedure. People are telling me it's a criminal offence, and we're back to this: what is an offence?
I presume it's a breach of the Crimes Act or Land Transport Act.
Yeah, well, an act is a legislative rule of society given the force of law with consent of the governed, which I haven't consented to.
So you're saying you disagree with the legislation as well?
I'm saying that if I need to...
Any legislation, any act...
Yeah? I don't have the right or the capacity to interpret legally what any act is.
No, but you just said you disagree. You didn't give consent for that act.
Well, of course not. I mean,
it occurred to me that you disagree. You don't believe that the act's got any validity as it applies to you.
I believe the act applies to any you that is within New Zealand, but I hadn't lowered myself to the capacity of a plural. I am just a man with right and authority as such.
So I'm right. You don't believe the act applies to you.
I believe an acts absolutely apply to you, but I can't speak for this you character. No act applies to me, myself, or I, as I'm standing as a man.
Okay. So what was your name? Sorry, I better.
See, this is the other thing. You believe a man must have a name. I don't have a name. My person has a name. I was given a name at birth.
Yeah.
So I'm commonly known as Mark or Dad.
Yeah.
That's what most people call me.
So
other people call me other colourful things too. That's fine too.
So if going back to my original question.
Sure.
I said the legislation doesn't apply to you.
It does apply to you.
No, please let me finish.
Yeah.
If I say, does it apply to Mark? Did you say Mark, sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it apply to Mark?
Legislation applies to the natural person Mark Donald Eric, and the legislation applies to the legal person Keen Mark Donald Eric. That, you know, both are personas, both are masks that man represents through within certain societies. See, I live in the present as a...
So you're going back.
So, yes, of course legislation applies to those persons should I act through those persons.
Are you acting through those persons at the moment?
Well, I'm not acting as anything. I've only ever stated I am a man.
So those persons are irrelevant for this conversation?
I don't quite get that question. What do you mean they're irrelevant? I'm ringing because there's a charge being brought against my person.
So are you going to apply for legal aid on behalf of that person?
Through that person, absolutely. Because it is that person's right within that society to do so.
So going back to my original question, that person is facing a charge under, I don't know, it's Crimes Act or Land Transport Act or whatever,
Sure.
do you accept that legislation is valid?
No.
That person?
Not at that point in time. No, it was not. See, I'm not of the belief that legislation is all abiding all of the time to everyone. Nothing could be further from the truth.
So just going back a step now,
Mhm.
if you accepted the act was valid, and if the person is valid,
Yeah?
you don't believe that you committed a crime.
No, I did no wrong.
And you don't believe that the legislation.
I believe I've done no wrong.
Yeah, but regardless of that,
Mhm.
don't agree with the legislation either.
Well, I don't understand it. How can I agree with it?
Yeah, but you're saying that.
How can you agree with something you don't understand?
Well, we're going 75 kilometres in a 50 kilometre an hour.
Not at that time, because I wasn't acting in a commercial capacity. I was just being a man travelling from point A to point B using my property to do so. At no time was I acting in a capacity as a driver using a vehicle in New Zealand.
So you weren't driving?
No, I was travelling using my property.
So you're being pedantic?
I'm not being pedantic, I'm using the exact words.
You weren't running?
No, of course I wasn't.
Nah, with your foot on the accelerator, you were driving.
Okay, define driving, because driving is a commercial act. You are employed when you are driving.
I drive to work every day. And
Okay, of course, because you're acting in commerce, you're getting paid to do so.
I drive to the beach to go for a swim.
In which case you're not driving, you are just using your free and equitable right to travel.
That is just absurd, I'm afraid.
It's not absurd, I'm sorry. Are you prepared to state full commercial liability that the common law right to travel does not exist?
I will state that when I go down to the beach, I am driving.
And you are welcome to believe that, Graeme.
Driving.
Because you believe
I'm
that.
going to work.
Because you believe that. And man is governed by his beliefs.
So the bottom line is, I can't help you.
So you can't tell me what the legal definitions of any of the words are.
I cannot. You are not going to be able to fill out this form unless you accept the words literally. Where it says, what title do you wish to be known as? It's Mr., Mrs., Miss.
Exactly. So,
what is your first name?
So by asking...
Would you be putting Mark down?
The person's name is Mark, correct.
Okay. Would you be putting down male, I assume?
I'm sure that person is classed as a male.
Date of birth? That person
The date of birth, that is written down somewhere. I'd have to look it up. I mean, I was there at the time, but can you remember the day you were born? Or did somebody tell you and now it's third-hand information?
Absurd now.
I'm not getting absurd. I'm sorry, I'm not.
You know, you can fill out the form the best you can.
I mean, is it in your training to tell a member of the public that you're talking to on the phone absurd? Pardon?
Not when they're being obstructive. And
How am I obstructive by trying to comprehend the words that are being used to try and govern and...
You said, I can't give you my date of birth because you can't remember the day that you were born.
Exactly.
That is obstructive.
That is not obstructive. I can tell you what my mother has told me, but that is third-hand information. And my mother's a confirmed liar. She told me the Santa Claus existed. She told me the Truth Fairy existed. You know, it depends on your perception. Now, I was born. Yes. I wasn't capable of remembering the date.
When I fill out the form,
yeah.
you can, and we will
I can...
fill out the best you can.
Yep. But see, that's the thing, the best I can. So I could be incriminating myself by giving the wrong information.
By giving the wrong information?
Absolutely. I mean, it says on the birth certificate that it's not to be used for purposes of identification.
No.
So how can I use a birth certificate for identity?
Well, we were just asking what your date of birth is.
Yeah, and the date of birth, apparently according to my mother...
If you don't want to fill out the form, that is fine. But
I would love to fill out the form and apply for a right that I have.
Every part of this form.
Of course I will argue. As I said, argue...
Well, we can't. We apply legal aid in the interest of our clients. You would be one of our clients if you filled out the form.
Exactly, I would step into that capacity as a client, correct.
Do that. You wanted to argue banal things like what is your date of birth.
I'm not arguing what my date of birth is.
You don't want to fill it out.
Excuse me, it's not that... That's a big assumption, Graeme. That's a huge assumption. I am happy to fill it out and apply for justice in that society, but I am not going to put my name and sign something unless I know what the word means. And I have been made aware that the writing on these application forms is written in a legalese language, and I need somebody from that society to translate it to English for me. Will you at least understand that part?
No.
Why?
Because you're being obstructive. You're not asking what does the meaning of a particular legalese phrase. You're arguing that you can't put the date of birth down.
I'm not arguing that at all. You've brought up the date of birth, Graeme.
That you've been charged under, and that you're not driving.
Exactly. That man on the side of the road.
You weren't driving because you were in a car for personal reasons, not for commercial. I mean,
it's a private automobile.
Mark, I can't help you unless you want to help yourself.
I'm happy to help myself.
Well, fill out the form the best you can.
And if I fill out the form the best I can and I put down the incorrect information, or if I have an incorrect understanding of what the words on that form mean, does that not do me wrong?
We would come back to you and ask if this is what you mean.
Okay, and this is exactly... see now, Graeme, you've just said you would come and ask me if that's what I mean. That is exactly what I am doing right now. I am asking you guys what your forms mean.
Let me finish. There's what?
Well, it goes both ways. You let me finish a sentence.
There's 30 questions on the form.
Yeah.
Fill out the most you can, the best you can.
And what? Cross my fingers and hope for a bit of justice and plead guilty as soon as possible? Because that's what I've got from you at the moment.
It's just to get you a lawyer. I can't tell you what the lawyer's going to do.
Because is the lawyer, where does the lawyer's allegiances lie to? Are they not sworn to the legal profession? Are they not sworn to the bar?
Yes.
So they hold an oath to the bar first? Or to the client?
Part of their standards is to act in the best interest of the client.
Okay, and the man...
comply by the rules of court. Otherwise,
okay.
It would just be chaos, wouldn't it?
Oh, of course, there's always proper procedures to follow. I totally get how there's step 1, step 2 to get to step 10. I understand all of that jazz. I mean, I'm a computer programmer. I understand what steps you have to go to make things work, which is probably why I'm so analytical and have broken down this and deconstructed statutory law for the last 4 years to comprehend it all. Perhaps I comprehended a bit more than you, Graeme. I mean, I
just want you to fill out the form so we can decide...
Yeah, exactly. You just want me to fill out the form. I want to know what the words mean on the form, Graeme.
Home phone, you can fill out there. You can, as I said, you can fill out the date of birth, and if it's on your birth certificate and you put that date...
Sure.
And
I would not have any arguments.
It's an avowed liar, we know that, but she stated to the registrar of courts that you were born on such and such.
Yeah, she was under the belief that she...
To be wrong, I guarantee you will not be prosecuted for it. If your birth certificate says that date and you put that date down...
Tell me, Graeme.
That's the day you were born.
You know, when Neil issued me... And Neil Winterbottom's the policeman's name, right? When Neil issued me those infringements on that day, he stuck them under my wiper blade, right? Now I took them out from my wiper blade and I stuck them back under his wiper blade while he tried to drive away from me. And in doing so, he ran onto my foot. He committed vehicular assault and then he fled. Now, was he justified in his actions to run me over with a vehicle for me breaking a rule?
You're asking my opinion?
Sure. Well, I mean, that's all law is, isn't it? It's just assumption, presumption and opinion.
If I was in your position...
Yeah. Look it up. It's on YouTube.
What is... Yeah, I could be equally pedantic and say, well, was he driving or was he cruising or had he sped up? Was it official driving? He was in a commercial capacity.
Yeah.
But in terms of getting away from you, had he finished his shift? So was he really driving? I mean,
He was just a man on the side of the road.
you could... And was his name really... Is it Neil Winterbottom?
Neil Winterbottom's his name. That's what he identified himself as when I said, who are you?
That's the man who's...
He's a man. He's using a name called Neil Winterbottom. He's acting in the capacity as a constable.
Doesn't necessarily mean it's him.
Okay, I'm sure there's more than one Neil Winterbottom in the world.
What I'm getting at is that you could argue every single piece of...
Absolutely.
When you pay for a newspaper, you could say, well, you want $1 for that? Well, what's the legal...
Oh, well, I would accept that for value, and I haven't argued anything. I have conditionally accepted New Zealand Police's claim for value, provided they could provide evidence that I was bound under those laws at the time. They have failed to do so. All they've done is give me a 3-page statement of fact that's not signed or sworn. You know, the most legal advice I've had from multiple of lawyers so far in regards to this matter is to have him sworn in on the stand. So that way I can hold him against his perjury, basically, because my videotapes, my video evidence rebuts his claims. You can't argue video evidence.
What you can, yes, and that's fine. I'm not going to argue the case.
Oh, sure.
No, I wasn't there. I'm just trying to get you
Well,
a lawyer.
if you look up Neil Winterbottom on YouTube, it's all there for you. It's not a problem.
That's the name he was using, yes.
Well, Constable Neil Winterbottom. He's from Warkworth Police Station. Bill Russell is his senior sergeant. He was also the man given the IPCA complaint to investigate, and all he did was brush it under the table. I mean, the man right over my foot in a cop car. I lodge an IPCA complaint against him, and it's given to his direct superior officer to do nothing for a month and then call me a liar at the end of it. I mean, that's not an independent police conduct authority to give it to Neil's direct boss to investigate.
Well, all your issues. All I can do...
Oh, I'm sure you can't. I wouldn't expect you to, Graeme.
So if the forms... rather than the form, when are you next in court?
19th of May at 9:30.
So you from what you've told me, you're probably unlikely to get legal aid anyway. The charge.
Okay.
But, yeah, let's say we have discretion. But on the 19th of May, you can turn up at court and ask to speak to a duty lawyer and tell them what you're charged with.
Yeah.
And they will represent.
I spoke to an Ian Tucker at the North Shore. He was the second duty solicitor who didn't get up and walk out on me. And he understood exactly where I was coming from. He understood everything I have just explained to you in regards to the birth certificate and the persons. He understood it all because he is legally trained. You're taking it all as, oh, this guy's just a nutter on the end of the phone and is just being argumentative, obstructive and all the rest of it.
I don't think you're a nutter.
Well, I mean, I'm very well learned on how all of these words are used. I mean, I've got New Zealand...
Okay, so that duty lawyer...
Yep.
...represents you in court.
Yeah, he stood up and he said that he had spoken to Mr. Keane, and Mr. Keane wished to plead not guilty on regards to the two charges, and then the judge, or JP, his name was Mr. Hawthorne, I believe, said to bring the evidence in on the 19th of May. So my next step is I need to know how I bring that evidence in. Do I bring it in on a disc? Do I need to bring in a TV screen? You know, I've got the video, it's a 19-minute video. So how do I produce that? How do I present that to the court?
Well, turn up at court on the 19th, ask a duty lawyer to help you, and ask that question of the JP.
So it's a justice of the peace then? It's not a judge?
Oh, I don't know. You said it was a JP.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what Rachel Allen, the registrar at North Shore District Court, said, that it was a justice of the peace. So he's not a judge.
She's telling me that.
Well, I mean, I don't. My biggest understanding is that it's a public courthouse that's rented out for the day, so private business can be held in it between the New Zealand Police and all their contracts with the driver's licences. That's my understanding of it. It's all a private setting, and that's just an administrative hearing. Okay, that's what my understanding is. What's going on in there? That man isn't a judge. He's not acting under any oath.
He will be under an oath.
Is he? So how can he act impartial and yet...
He's a sworn in. As our judges.
So the last time I was in court and I asked the man on the bench whether he was acting under his oath, he failed to answer my question. So I take it as acquiescence or as silence was yes?
I can't comment.
You know what I mean? I mean, I know these... last time I went in there, I held up the birth certificate and said Mr. Keane is in the court, and I got the old maxim, you know, what was it? Oh, what's the maxim? Presence of the body corrects any flaw of the name. So the fact that I was standing there as a man in front of them corrected the argument of whether or not I was a person or not, because I showed up. Okay, but an appearance doesn't have to be you standing in front of a judge. An appearance is just a piece of paper.
Okay, so I said on the 19th of May.
Yep.
You can turn up at court.
I'll be present, too right.
The lawyer to ask for a duty lawyer to help you.
And if they don't help me, then what do I do?
You have to appear before the JP and say, well, you told me to present evidence. I don't know how. Well, I can't tell you how to run a case.
Well, see, this is my problem. You guys say ask a duty solicitor, but when I ask a duty solicitor, they get up and walk out. Joe actually said to me, the duty solicitor, she got up and she goes, "You're too much for me," and walked out.
Listen to me, please.
Sure.
If you won't, and that's what my question was going earlier, if you won't let them help you, they may as well walk out. You've got to abide by the rules of the court.
I am happy to let them help me, but I am also, when I ask a question, I expect to have a simple answer. It's a simple question. What is the interpretation of the word person, legally speaking? That's a simple question, isn't it? And I looked it up, and I found it myself. And yet when I ask that question, which I already know the answer to, from any legal professional, they get up and walk out.
Okay, well I suggest...
So that shows their allegiances is to the bar, not to the client. They're protecting...
Yeah. So if you want to go before a JP and say that, that's fine, that's up to you. If you want to fill out a legal aid form to the best of your ability, we can process it. But you may not get a lawyer anyway, as I've explained.
Okay. Well, it's been an awesome phone call, Graeme.
Good luck.
I appreciate it, mate, and I'm sorry it's probably one for the books for you, but I mean, like anything else, I mean, I record all my phone call conversations for training purposes because I try to train myself better. So yeah, like I say, look it up on YouTube. It's everything I do is on YouTube when it comes to public. The court appearance, I filmed that when I was in there last time. Apparently you're not allowed to film in court. That didn't stop me, and it was only because I rang the court and I gave them notice that I'd be filming. So, you know, the belief that you're not allowed to do things is just a belief. Nothing is farther from the truth, my friend. You have the right to travel without having to have a license. You know, the act of registration actually creates a trust. You know, when you register something like your child or your car, you're actually creating the vehicle. When you register your offspring, you're creating a child. And it's these words that they use to control you. So it's just
not surprisingly, I agree with a lot of the registration. I wouldn't like unregistered cars on the road, not with my children around.
Well, originally registration was there because, you know, they brought out so many cars they needed to keep track of who was who. But these days registration is solely monetary, it's solely revenue collection. That's all it is. I mean, I've filmed, personally, in the last year and a half, I've filmed over 48 speed cameras in my local area. And each time I see a speed camera, that's $20,000 they're making, minimum, daily. So that's $1 million out of 2 speed cameras in a year and a half that's been extracted locally.
Again, not surprisingly, I believe speeding is a major cause of death.
Absolutely, and I believe speed
controller.
Absolutely, there are a lot of irresponsible idiots out there on the roads. Unfortunately, I am not one of them. I am not one of them, though. So, you know, I don't need anyone else to tell me what to do. I just quite happily do my own thing. I don't cause any harm or injury. And like that day, when he pulled me over, there was no joinder. Nothing was established that I was driving a vehicle, and no person was there. And so he fabricated my details. He ran me over. And so we'll see him on that. I mean, all the lawyers so far that I've spoken to have said that this case is probably just going to be dismissed on the 11th hour when the officer doesn't show up to give evidence. That's what will happen. It'll just be dismissed because the cop doesn't show up. So, I mean, if they really want to piss me off the most, not showing up, because I'm so looking forward to having that man on the stand under oath so I can do him for perjury. You know, because if he sticks to a statement of facts, I can prove it a lie. So, I don't know. Anyway, Graeme, thank you.
Have a good evening.
You have an awesome day, mate.
Thanks.
See ya. Wow. What do you reckon about that? Thanks, Graeme. Just goes to show the mentality of what some people are led to believe. You know, it's crazy. The guy, he admitted he's not a lawyer, so he's not legally trained. He didn't have the comprehension of the words that I was trying to explain to him. He thinks I'm being obstructive. How is it obstructive asking questions? And just for the record, my person's driver's license expires in 2017, and unless they can tell me that I require one, we will see. But it's awesome, Graeme. You're going up online. You're a star, mate. That man's name was Graeme Metcalfe. Okay? I believe. Yeah. Alright. I'll make a video and post all of this up, and you guys can make your own decisions whether or not legal aid is actually helpful, because all they seem to want to do is get you to fill out a form so then they can charge out against your trust, your Seste QV trust, charge against your person, your piece of New Zealand's public trust purse. They want to be able to dip into that to pay their lawyers, while all along they just say, well, just plead guilty. Just say sorry, Dad, and get a slap on the hand, and that be done with it. Well, I mean, I don't give a fuck. I did nothing wrong. That man ran me over. He was the wrongdoer. So we'll see what happens. One way or another. Test it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.